I never thought saying a single word, no, would cost me everything. It started as a quiet summer morning at my lakeside cabin resort, where the biggest problem used to be noisy crickets and early sunrises. But the HOA had other plans. They wanted control, not just over my cabins, but my entire livelihood. I didn't realize that refusing their latest, mandatory improvements, would light a fuse I couldn't put out, and that fuse was about to explode. At first, I thought it was just a misunderstanding. A week after I refused the HOA's demand for mandatory improvements, I found a letter taped to my cabin door. The bold red letters at the top screamed, "Final warning." According to them, my resort violated community standards because the cabins didn't match their new, approved color palette and my landscaping wasn't aesthetically harmonious. I almost laughed. This was my land, my property, and my business. Surely, they couldn't control something they didn't own, right? But things quickly turned dark. 2 of my longest-standing bookings canceled overnight. When I called to ask why, the families said they'd heard rumors about safety issues at my resort. The strangest part? I hadn't told a soul about the HOA dispute. Then came the flyers. One morning, I found dozens of pamphlets scattered around town claiming my cabins had mold infestations and electrical hazards, all completely false. When I confronted the HOA president at their monthly meeting, she smiled coldly and said, "Rules are rules. You should have just complied." That's when I knew something bigger was happening. My business wasn't just under attack, my entire reputation was being dismantled. Friends stopped calling, locals avoided me, and every time I drove through town, I noticed unfamiliar cars parked near my resort, their drivers watching, waiting. The HOA wasn't just enforcing rules. They were playing a game, and I was the target point. One stormy night, I woke to the smell of smoke. At first, I thought it was a passing campfire, but when I stepped outside, my heart nearly stopped. Flames were crawling up the side of my smallest cabin. I grabbed the fire extinguisher, shouting for help, but by the time I reached the door, the heat was unbearable. We called the fire department, but the blaze had already swallowed 2 cabins before they arrived. The next morning, the HOA president showed up uninvited. No condolences. No shock. Just a folded packet of papers in her perfectly manicured hand. "This," she said coldly, "is what happens when safety codes aren't followed." According to their report, my cabins had faulty wiring and structural deficiencies. But here's the thing, I had just paid for full electrical inspections the month before, and everything had passed. I suspected arson, but without proof, my insurance company hesitated to cover the losses. Meanwhile, the HOA doubled down, issuing new fines, new violations, and even threatening to seize my property for community safety. It felt like a coordinated attack. The strange cars watching my resort became more frequent. Guests stopped booking entirely. One night, I caught someone snooping near my tool shed, but by the time I got outside, they were gone, leaving behind muddy boot prints leading straight toward the HOA office. That's when I knew this wasn't about rules anymore. This was personal. And if I didn't fight back, I was going to lose everything. Determined to uncover the truth, I dug deeper into the HOA's finances. At first, everything looked normal: budgets, maintenance fees, landscaping expenses. But then I found something buried deep in last year's financial report, a mysterious, special project fund, worth nearly $500,000. No descriptions. No breakdowns. Just a single line item, and it matched the exact value of my entire property. I started asking questions, quietly at first. A former HOA board member, after a few drinks, finally cracked. He whispered, "They want your land. They've been planning to buy it for months, but you refuse to sell. Now they're forcing you out." Suddenly, everything made sense: the rumors, the fake violations, the mysterious fires. They wanted to drive me into bankruptcy, then swoop in and buy my resort for pennies. Armed with this knowledge, I requested a full audit of the HOA's budget. That's when things got ugly. At the next meeting, I confronted the board in front of dozens of homeowners. I held up the audit request and said, "If you've got nothing to hide, prove it." The room went silent. The president's face drained of color. Board members whispered nervously, flipping through their papers. I knew then that I had them cornered, but they weren't going down without a fight. The HOA called an emergency session, barring me from attending. That night, an anonymous note slid under my door: "Stop digging, or you'll regret it." For the first time, I realized this wasn't just a property dispute anymore. I was in real danger, and the worst was yet to come. The very next week, I got the proof I needed, and it came from the most unexpected place. A firefighter who'd responded to the cabin fire reached out privately. He told me the blaze hadn't started inside the cabin, as the HOA claimed, but outside, near the gas line. Someone had tampered with it. He couldn't say it on record, but his hint was enough. I hired a private investigator, and within days, we had photos, documents, and emails tying key HOA board members to a developer group planning a luxury resort on my land. They weren't just enforcing rules, they were orchestrating a hostile takeover. Armed with the evidence, I filed a lawsuit and submitted everything to the state authorities. Within weeks, multiple board members resigned, and the president herself vanished from town overnight. Investigations are still ongoing, but one thing became crystal clear: they were willing to burn everything, literally, to get what they wanted. I managed to save what was left of my resort, but the scars remain. 2 cabins gone. Years of reputation destroyed. Nights spent wondering if someone was watching me. And yet, I'm grateful I stood my ground. Because if I hadn't uncovered their secret, they would have destroyed me completely. And here's the scary part: my case isn't unique. Every week, we hear new stories about HOAs abusing their power, crossing lines, and ruining lives. If you've ever faced an HOA nightmare, share your experience in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to HOA Case Files for more shocking real-life stories. Trust me, this was just the beginning.